subject.
Yeah.
How has the photography that you do in particular affected other people?
See the things that people, if you're walking down the street, the things that you just miss usually, like
Yeah,
you're drawn to those, the little nooks and crannies.
Lovely art form to get into, and especially in this day and age where we're kind of like constantly bombarded by AI, everything, to the psychology of photography and the chaos of my life sometimes. And I think so many of us really do. Hello and welcome to the Camera Central podcast. Today I'm actually filming this on the Nikon ZR in public, so we're testing out the 32-bit float. But also, Tom's back with us again,
Yep.
We're doing this podcast, doing some really cool things today. And the subject is photography as therapy.
Yeah.
So, where do we begin with it?
Photography is therapy.
For a long time. So I've been shooting photography from the age of 6, right? And I've always found it as a way to really kind of like get out of my head, get into the real world and just kind of experience and see light in a different way. And for me, it's more about being present in the moment. I know it sounds a little bit weird saying that when you're usually behind a screen, but I think there are a lot of aspects of photography that allow you to experience life in a nice way.
You see the things that people...
At Camera Centre UK, we do a lot of new and used gear. This gives you the opportunity to go for the newest and greatest piece of technology or have a look at something a little bit older. At the end of the day, you can get some really great cameras for not too much money. A full frame camera can actually cost you around £200 to £300, and it's a great way to at least start doing photography. So make sure you go check out our used selection over on cameracenteruk.com. And well, let's continue.
If you're walking down the street, the things that you just miss usually, like you're drawn to those, the little nooks and crannies and the little kind of interactions that happen that would go unnoticed otherwise. 100%.
And is that something that you've experienced via doing the stranger portrait photography? I know you approach people quite a lot, but are there times where you're like, well, this is actually just a really nice composition, or I can tell a story here? What's that experience been for?
Yeah, no, 100%. So obviously you started when you were about 6, you said. I obviously started about 6 months ago. So completely different ballparks. And I am someone that throughout my life has always kind of shied away from anywhere where I'm likely to have to interact with anyone.
Yeah.
I will ignore the door if the door knocks and I don't want to speak to someone. I've always been that sort of person. And obviously, as you said, I approach people and I've realised that I actually enjoy talking to people. People are okay.
And what has that experience done for you? Because when we first started meeting, and if you've watched the video I did with Tom originally, we kind of like talked on this kind of like you were quite nervous about talking to people, and it was something that you always found to be quite hard. So how do you find that now by doing photography, or
Yeah, I'm a complete night and day. I'm a completely different person. I can sit here talking for a camera on a podcast and hopefully don't come across too awkward,
exactly.
And that's something that I'd have never done in the past. Especially not in a situation like this where we're outside. There's people walking past that are going to be thinking, "Oh, what are they doing? Why are they talking?" And it would have just.
Well, I was hoping they wouldn't notice that we're outside of the studio today. We're actually recording this via, like I said, the Nikon ZR with the. Using the 32-bit float audio with the DJI Mic 2s. So it'll be interesting to see the actual audio quality out of this. But I think this is kind of a really good kind of natural progression as kind of what we can actually do here, as it's a nice way to be able to get out on the street, talk to actual people, perhaps even get some of the people from the community we're looking to build. I was actually hopefully going to be getting Natalie down to join us. But I needed an extra mic, so I need to invest in another mic, I think. But
or I need to remember mine next time.
Or you need to,
yeah.
But it's all kind of progression, and seeing what we can do with this, and try and tell other people's stories, because I think photography can be used professionally, but also just for fun, and really help people. Just in general, I think it's a really lovely art form to get into, and especially in this day and age where we're kind of like constantly bombarded by AI, everything. I think what's really great about the art of photography, especially if you aim to do it for a more natural standpoint, is the ability to be able to tell the story and have true meaning out of the stuff that you actually take.
Yeah, no, 100%. when I go out every day. That's essentially what I'm doing every day.
Yeah.
Someone asked me what type of photographer I see myself as the other day. You know, do I see myself as a portrait photographer? Do I see myself as a street photographer? I think I'm a weird cross between the two, and I think it probably is more towards kind of documentary photographer.
Yeah.
So although I'm getting involved, which goes against the rules of that, I'm kind of trying to do it in a really minimalistic way. So I am still documenting the people that are on the street, where I stop them, what they look like. You know, I'm trying not to pose people, and it's, you know, there's so many different.
So on that kind of subject,
Yeah.
how has the photography that you do in particular affected other people, be it in mental health or?
I mean, anyone who follows me on Instagram will have seen stories. I put stories up all the time when people send me messages or put comments, just because I want people to. For me, if someone sends "You've really helped me with this," and I can show that actually that's an okay thing to say, then more people will start doing that. And I think it's important to get more people in the community being open about things they feel.
Yeah.
So you doing this for me, you know, has helped me to be able to do this, and actually being vocal about that to the person that's done something nice to you, because then that makes people more likely to do nice things.
Yeah.
So I'm always open about it, and I always try and post any comments or messages. And the comments and messages I get from people, I had one a while ago that I posted on my stories. It was the mum of someone I'd stopped, who actually said, you know, you've essentially completely saved her, and said that she was suffering with her mental health, and they were very, very worried, and the confidence and the self-esteem it gave her to be stopped by me, and the difference that's made to her outlook on her life. And she finished with a message with, you saved our daughter. And kind of, for me, you know, it actually kind of choked me up a little bit, you know, that it can have that much of an impact on someone.
Exactly. I think this episode of Camera Centre UK is, of course, brought to you by Freshly Baked Cookies. They're absolutely excellent, and we'll get back to it. Especially in this day and age with social media, and if you go in it with true intention, I think the amount of lives you can actually impact with what you do is very special. And kind of like coming across that and talking a little bit more about the sort of like side of it when it comes to the psychology of photography and how it can affect you in a good way. So my mum's actually a doctor. She went back later in life because it was my sister's dream, and my sister passed away when I was young. And it was my sister's dream to always help people. And so my mum became a a doctor for psychotherapy for children and young people. And she specialises in this thing called Santre therapy. There is a link, trust me, I'm coming to it. So she specialises this thing in Santre therapy, which is getting people to impart their life experiences on a tray of sand, build structures, use toys to kind of like help, describe how they've gone through life, you know, the hardships, you know, and, you know, there's a lot of meaning you can donate from that. And it's all really about storytelling. So I was doing this job with my mum, filming her doing this for her business. And what I ended up coming across is this really kind of like strong link to photography then as well. And it's also been something I've been really interested in exploring myself, because the idea that photography can help you tell a story, tell your story, and help you overcome that and bring light to it is a really fascinating way to look at it. And one of the most interesting subjects I think I found over this kind of journey I've been on photography, doing the concept for the show, was this lady over in Penarth that does projects, and we've actually put her on the podcast before. She has a Russian doll. Cool. That is I can't remember the term for it, but it's basically a giant film camera. And she takes
Russian doll film camera.
A Russian doll. It's about this high. I'll put clips of it in the podcast.
I want to see that, so please do.
And she goes around and she photographs victims of like domestic abuse in the situations where they feel most safe, and kind of like her story, and all these people who do this kind of like documentary style of photography where they're telling stories, trying to intrigue people into the art form of photography, I think is completely fascinating, and it's a really powerful tool for both the photographer and the person being taken photo of.
Yeah, I think photography, it's really easy to think of it as, you know, it's a business thing, you know, you go and take pictures of this wedding, or you do that for this person or that for this person, but in reality it's art. It's the same as any form of art, and I think sometimes it's hard to remember that, and you kind of think of photography as, you know, almost a corporate entity, and it's not. It's art, you know, and art has the ability to change lives.
Yeah, I think we'd been living in a sorry world where art wasn't like as important as it really should be.
Yeah.
As it has the ability to affect everybody in such a meaningful way. I'm doing a video at the moment and putting together the plans, and the idea of the video is a photo's worth 1,000 words, but now it's only a sentence.
Okay.
Because of the idea of AI imagery, where people
Yeah.
just put a sentence into an engine to be able to create images. I thought that was quite a powerful kind of like subject.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And I think that's where photography, unlike a lot of other areas within AI, will always remain really important, because it's about meaning and people's journeys that are the most important.
I think with any good photograph, there's a story behind the photograph, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Even if it's something simple like a discarded coffee cup in a doorway, there's a story behind that.
Yeah.
And AI can't create stories, you know, it can't create history, it can't create the past of what has led to the image that's there. So
and it's been fascinating. Through doing this video, I've done a lot of research as to kind of like the origins of photography and stuff like that. And, you know, I think it was like 1873 when the first, or something like that, when the first photo of an actual person was actually taken.
I was
which
watching
was literally a shadow of a shoe shiner in a landscape of a city.
Yeah, so he wasn't meant to be there. It was meant to just be a picture of a city, and because he was doing the shoe shiner, he obviously stood still, and everyone else was moving around.
Yeah.
And he accidentally
ended up
in
becoming,
the first person
remaining thing. And, you know, it took another 3 or 4 years before you get the first portrait. And ironically, because this idea for video is all about the search of meaning and kind of like why photography is important. And, you know, how certain things like AI created imagery will never really be anything true. What I ended up coming across is, and remembering from when I studied photography in university, were these guys, I think they're called the Canterbury Twins or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but it was the first time manipulation of a photo was ever used, and people used it as a way to prove that fairies existed.
Yes, I have heard of this, yeah.
So what they did is these two kids ended up taking some photos, getting some cutout on some paper and drawing fairies and putting it in the image. And this, for the longest amount of time, was used as actual evidence that fairies existed.
Yeah, it was decades before they worked out how it was done, wasn't it?
Yeah, which has interesting links to today's world where, you know, there are photos that are being created that have been widely spread that are just blatantly not true. And it's how do you kind of like guide that, where at that time photography was only ever treated as 100% fact.
Yeah.
So like, how does that then affect that kind of world? I know I kind of got off subject a little bit. I'm really good at doing that.
Yeah, it's something that worries me as well. Obviously, the more my Instagram page kind of gets bigger and the more as a face, I'm a face that's becoming a little bit known. It is worrying to think that at some point there could be a picture created and like AI could develop enough that, you know, people...
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's about trying to find truth and meaning into it. And maybe to a certain extent it would be good. Like, I think that it's going to come to a head where there has got to be some sort of, you know, legislation and control over it, because I think truth and meaning are super important. But like I said, we're losing the ability to, but there's a reason why. And I know it was originally an ad campaign, the idea of a picture's worth 1,000 words. But really, when you think about it, it truly is, because it's all about your journey, your experience, what their experiences are, and kind of like bringing them all to a head and bringing them all together. Yeah. Now, of course, you know, that could be argued against when it comes to kind of like professional photography, because it's more about job, getting something done, right? But there is truth, meaning in everything, even when it comes to the professional environment. And I think photography is such a broad subject. I just think it's important that people do it.
I think professional photography, though, it's like me. I'm starting to get booked for shoots now.
Yeah.
But I've realised that I value my style and the way I take photographs and kind of the way I build my image enough that I'm kind of being quite strict on that now, and I'm saying yes, I can do X, Y, Z event.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some events I've got coming up that I've been booked for that are not the normal type of people I'd shoot or the normal type of things that I'd be attending. But I've been very open with them and said I like my style.
Yeah.
I want to keep to my style. Like if you're happy with that, then brilliant. And people are booking me on my style, even when it's not something that you'd necessarily think would be a fit.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool. It's quite a nice thing to realise that actually, even when it's business, you can still have that artistic
Yeah, for sure.
influence within it.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things. Like, and I think that side of things, the storytelling, the art of the photo, is going to become more and more important. And I think that's where, I think marketing's going to go in the future. I think it's where so many things are going to go in the future is. In the link down below, you've got access to the Wales and West Photography Show, and it's coming up in 2016, and it's going to be a hell of an experience. The Wales and West Photography Show gives you the ability to check out some of the biggest and best creators on the market, and also check out all the latest technology. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and year after year we actually get superb feedback, as it's a really nice chance for you to really talk to other people, learn a little bit, maybe even get yourself some new camera tech, and check out what is going to be next for you in the future. Wales and West Photography Show is, of course, at the ICC in Newport, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun. I'll be there, Tom will most likely be there, and everybody else will be there, so make sure you're there as well, and I'll see you next year. Let's get on with it. Stories of people's day-to-day life are going to be the things that people most invest into, because you can see these really well-rendered fake humans, but that's not necessarily always the thing that counts, right?
I think even if there's one that's done perfectly as well, you get some that you look at it and you're like, is that AI, isn't it? But there's always that little thing in the back of your head that's like, it just doesn't seem real. And even if there's nothing that you can visually be able to differentiate, you can just kind of, I think the soul's missing from the image almost. It's, you can't work out exactly why, but it's not right.
You can see it, and I've seen a number of people do like tests and show like AI images on Instagram and stuff like that, but like you look at it and it's like, yes, there's perfection behind it, but I think what's great about photography and art, and the thing that will always remain the most important thing when it comes to what's defined as good art, is its imperfection. And I think imperfection is almost more important than perfection.
Yeah. When I take photographs of people, I keep them talking, and I'll take a burst of photographs as they're walking, looking around talking. Generally, you've got the perfect shot when they're looking directly at the camera. I usually don't use them. I use the one when they're like brushing their hair aside, or there's something that's not fully, up and down, proper, posed photography. I use something that just makes it more human-like, stroking the hair away. Or
that becomes, I think, more important on the grand scheme of things when it does come to, photography and everything like that.
A funny story, I saw I was reading a thing the other day, a woman entered an AI wildlife photography competition, got through to the final, and I think was going to win it with a real photograph, and then they realised it's a real photograph and disqualified her.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my days.
Which is crazy when you think about it,
But it's the idea, like, how can someone, it's all well and great having, like, being good at telling an AI how to do it, but technically the AI took the photo, not you. Yeah. And then it comes down to copyright, right? Because there's one photo that is, like, famously known as not being able to be owned by anybody, because it's, like, a photograph of a chimp doing a selfie. I don't know if you've seen it. Genuinely, because the chimp's taking the photo, or the monkey's taking the photo. Technically, the photographer that took that photo doesn't actually, no, the photographer who owned the camera that took the photo doesn't actually own the photo. So legally, that photo is...
I mean, I'm sure there's some governments somewhere. There's governments that have, like, given trees legal status, so they can't be cut down. So somewhere someone could do something like that.
It's just a completely mad world, but photography and everything, it's just such an interesting subject. And I think it's helped so many people kind of understand the world, and I use it as a way to be able to kind of like sort out the chaos of my life sometimes, and I think so many of us really do. And this is going to be an interesting subject to find out from you guys now. So put in down below experiences that you've had. Have you used photography as a way to think about certain things, and how it has photography affected your psychology.
In reality, every single person on the planet almost does, because regardless of whether you consider yourself a photographer, our smartphones these days, everyone will see something that they like the look of, or see a sunset, or see X, Y, Z, and they'll take that picture to either to remember it, or because they want to show people, or
sure.
So I think it's 20.
Smash it. Anyway, I think we'll call that it for today. I don't know how long we've been filming for.
Don't know.
Oh, it says 8 minutes. Oh, do we continue?
8 minutes?
It feels like it should have been longer,
Should have
shouldn't
been
it?
a lot longer,
Yeah, no, it does feel like it should have been longer. Let's just call it a small one for today, because we haven't really actually planned anything, anyway, to be fair. Next thing I would say for us to go into is the questions that you've had.
Yes. So, obviously you can cut this bit out while I get them up.
If that battery ends up reaching red, I will just keep
Yeah,
cutting
that's cool.
this off.
Give
Okay.
me 1 second. Right. So one of the main ones, I had 4 people message me this one to say they want to upgrade their camera. They're looking at the differences between DSLR and mirrorless.
Yep.
And they kind of want to know from an expert, is it worthwhile going mirrorless and kind of waiting a bit longer, saving up a bit more money, or is it still at the point where kind of holding off a bit longer is still fine? Or
well, when it comes down to purchasing, it's really down to you. You got 2 sides of it. Used, new cameras. New cameras these days do tend to be mirrorless, and that effectively means the mirror box in the camera is no longer there, and it's just directly a sensor and then the lens that's attached to the front of it. When it comes to mirrorless cameras in general, they have a lot of added benefits. So you can get adapters for the mirrorless cameras that can use your older lenses. So if you're looking for just purely an upgrade in tech, video spec and stuff like that, sometimes it's worth going for a mirrorless body and still using your old lenses as a way to be able to bridge the gap, as it's kind of like a way to do it. When it comes to getting into photography, I always kind of recommend people to start with DSLR, because at the moment DSLR lenses are a lot cheaper, and you can get some brilliant full frame cameras and really get into doing photography with the sort of like professional level things as photography tech advances, but doesn't advance as fast as video tech, for example.
a lot of the camera shops, Camera Centre, for example, have a lot of used gear.
Yeah, we have a lot of
all
used
the time.
gear, and we have really professional staff in there that would be happy to help you at any time. Mirrorless cameras do tend to be smaller, lighter, and in some cases, if you have a look at the Fujifilm, they're actually a lot sexier as well, for use of a better word. And with that, they have sort of like an old film look, and you can still adapt any glass to any mirrorless thing and have the option to be able to do anything you want. Really, it does come down to your personal taste and flavour. When it comes to taking photos, the glass is, when it comes to doing photography, the glass is one of the most important parts of it. Purely because if you spend more money on the glass, the images are just generally going to be sharper and better. But there is a certain point, depending on the DSLR you have, in which the image quality is going to be vastly better on a mirrorless camera. Now, when you're going into that side of things, it's best to kind of like consider your budget and what you're looking for. There is a certain point where I feel you get enough DSLR gear and you're like, okay, I really feel like I need to upgrade. And that's the point where it would be good for you to upgrade. Or if you want to, have a smaller, lighter system that's going to be something you carry around with you more, then a mirrorless option is actually a great thing to look at. And that's something that's actually really important to remember, is that these cameras are always an investment, right? They are expensive things, and I have no delusion as to that, as I've bought many cameras in my life. The thing that's most important is, are you going to be taking that camera out with you and doing the photography? And when it comes to that, you really need to consider the size, the weights, what you're taking photos of, as to what you decide to purchase as your next camera. Because if you're doing nature photography, you want it to be faster, maybe look at a sort of like a pro tier, mid-pro tier kind of camera. If you're looking just to do day-to-day shooting, then a beginner mirrorless camera might suit you better. If you don't mind about size and you prefer having a grip, DSLR might actually work better for you. Just know that the technology is slowly getting abandoned by the prospective brands, so it's going to be harder to get them repaired. It's also going to be harder to... Here we come to the ad break now, and well, what I want to actually talk to you is about kittens. Kittens are just so adorable, aren't they? I've got 2 cats. It's absolutely fantastic. So this particular ad break is brought to you by kittens. Yep, kittens. Find more and more of these lenses, although at the moment there is a lot of the used lenses on the market at the moment. Yeah. So there's cost, benefit and pros to each of one. Mirrorless does tend to be better, and it very much does come down to where you are at in your photography journey.
Yeah. So to put an example on it, someone like me who is still a beginner as such,
Yeah.
but obviously is doing it quite almost full time as such. If you was in my shoes, what would you go for in that scenario?
Well, I feel like you're quite comfortable with your 60 at the moment, and I would recommend you going to mirrorless because there are going to be some added benefits for you there, especially when it comes to like looking at new lenses, having the ability to connect to your phone because you do stranger portrait photography, and sometimes, and you've seen it before, you might want to be able to send a photo to somebody but they don't actually have the social media. But at that moment, you could send the photo directly to your phone, edit it on your phone, and then send it to somebody, right? So you actually have the ability to do that. And you do have the ability to do it on some DSLRs as well.
So I can on this one, but it's not the most straightforward.
Yeah, and you're going to find faster systems in the newer kind of like things. The other side of the benefit is it's going to be smaller. You're going to have better video quality because we've been talking about Tom Parks doing a little bit more of his own YouTube stuff. Yeah, and that's one of the things I think would actually be useful for yourself. That's a big part
where this camera does hold me back. The video on it isn't the best. It's not really designed for doing video work.
Exactly. So. And in that respect, you don't necessarily need to change out much of your lenses. Hey, you could even get yourself an adapter, keep your 70 to 200, which you love, and your 50, and maybe get yourself a new mirrorless lens as an added extra. Yeah. You don't have to always get rid of all of the tech that you have at the moment because there are ways to adapt, move over a little bit slower. You don't necessarily have to do it all at the same time.
Amazing. And then, so I've had a message to ask, what's the best way to learn how to move off of auto white balance and start setting the white balance manually?
When it comes to auto white balance is a great tool. I mean, I've used it in a number of occasions, even in a professional environment, and in often cases it doesn't necessarily work out, especially when you do video. When it comes to switching over to the Kelvin or the heat scale, you've got to really look at the light around you. So at the moment we've got kind of a cloudy day. So right now around about, under 5,000 will give you kind of the best white balance in general. If it's sunny, you've got to move that up to 5,600, and then you're going to have the close to white as possible. And then you can move that down and up, and depending on your environment, you just need to make sure that what the monitor looks on the back, the white is white. Now, the other side of it is, especially if you've got a Sony camera, you can actually use a thing called middle grey to be able to correct your white balance. And when it comes to the Sony cameras, the cap that comes with your camera is actually set to middle grey. So you can use that to be able to set your white balance in the most accurate kind of way. It's also something people carry around with them, is a white card to be able to set the white balance to the correct setting. Usually, if you're in a tungsten situation, you need to make sure the light is set to a lower number. If you're in a cooler situation, you need to make it a higher number to be able to kind of like counteract with the opposite color to what's in your environment. So if you have a look inside of Mrs. Potts at the moment, there's a lot of tungsten lights. You're usually going to have to go under 4,000, 3,000 to be able to get the right white balance there. If you're out in a day where it's just like there's a lot of blue hour, you're going to need to counteract that the other way and budget up and try and get more of the orange back into the color. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, total.
Words. I forget how much I know about photography.
You are a fountain of knowledge.
I am a fountain of knowledge. Any other questions?
No, that was the two.
Amazing. Thank you for putting in those questions. Again, if you have any questions about photography, video, or anything that I can help you with, then make sure you put in a comment in down below. Quite happy to help out with anything, and also questions for Tom there as well. And I'm quite happy to ask him them. And yeah.
Probably not anything technical, though. I feel like you're definitely the technical answerer.
If you have any, if you have any suggestions where we should do a podcast next, then let us know. I think we're thinking about doing maybe Scaredy Cat.
Yeah, my favourite place
and having a coffee there. We went to Mrs. Potts today. Absolutely lovely hot chocolate for the colder weather that is getting more and more frequent as we go along. So yes, without further ado, Like, follow, subscribe. You want to see more? Follow Tom on Instagram at...
Tom Wilkins Photography.
And you can follow me, Firby, DOP, over on Instagram as well. And then also, like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. We're going to be trying to do more of these kind of podcasts weekly for you. So if you have any subjects you want to talk about, then please let us know. Anyway, without further ado, I'll see you later.